Imagine for a second that you know exactly what you need to do to hit your goals.
Right.
I mean, you have the exact blueprint in your head right now. Maybe you are a founder and it's finally fixing that fractured marketing strategy you've been ignoring for, I don't know, 18 months.
Oh, 18 months is probably being generous for a lot of folks.
Yeah, exactly. Or maybe you're a managing director and it's clarifying your company's value proposition. Or building a proper, rigorous lead gen system instead of just, crossing your fingers and hoping for word of mouth referrals.
Right, hoping the phone just rings.
Exactly. You have the knowledge. You absolutely have the desire. You know logically it will make your life and your business infinitely easier. And yet, month after month after month, it just doesn't get done.
It just sits there.
Yeah, it sits there. The quarter ends, and you push it to the next one, and the next one, and suddenly it's next year.
It is the universal experience of almost every ambitious professional.
Hmm.
I mean, we carry these strategic imperatives around like heavy baggage. We are fully aware that we are neglecting them.
Oh, totally.
And the psychological weight of that neglect, it's just enormous.
And we beat ourselves up about it constantly. We think, if I just had more discipline, or if I just managed my calendar better, if I woke up at 5 a.m., if I drank more green tea, whatever it is.
Yeah, the productivity hacks.
Exact, all the hacks. But that is the massive paradigm shift we are exploring today. The core revelation from our source material is honestly incredibly freeing. It says this failure to execute your most important strategic work is not a character flaw.
No, not at all.
It is not a lack of willpower. It is a structural flaw.
It's a profound reframing of the problem, really. And today's deep dive is grounded in an April 2026 piece titled The Accountability Gap, Transforming Strategy into Results Through Peer Structure.
Such a good title.
It is. It's authored by Larissa Hale, who is the managing director at Expert Circle. And our mission today is to really analyze the fascinating research she presents on why the urgent tasks in our day-to-day lives continuously, predictably displace the important tasks.
Every single time.
Every time. We are going to decode the exact mathematical progression of how humans actually achieve their goals based on some very hard data.
Yeah, and we are looking at everything from decades of corporate survival data during global economic crises to the evolutionary psychology behind the discomfort of peer pressure.
Which is fascinating.
It really is.
Yeah.
And how all of this culminates in a modern, practical framework for actually getting things done. So let's jump right into the anatomy of this so-called accountability gap.
Well, to it.
Why do highly competent senior leaders, people who are objectively crushing it in so many areas of their lives, consistently fail to do the very work that would make their businesses thrive long term?
Well, to understand that, you have to look at how Hale diagnoses the daily reality of senior leadership. Think about what a managing director, a CEO, or say a senior partner is held accountable for on a daily basis.
Right.
They're strictly accountable for revenue, obviously. They're accountable for client delivery, supply chain logistics, team management. I mean, they are making hundreds of rapid-fire operational decisions every single week.
Mm-hmm. Just constant putting out of fires.
Exactly. But here is the critical gap. Absolutely nobody holds them accountable for the strategic work that would actually make all of those operational tasks easier.
I was reading this and thinking about how we usually describe this, right? Like being trapped in the engine room, keeping the ship running. But honestly, that feels a bit cliche.
Yeah, a bit tired.
Reading Hale's breakdown, it feels much more like a hospital triage ward.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
Yeah, the operational stuff. The client who's angry, the shipment that is late, the employee who just quit, that's a patient bleeding out in front of you.
You have to address it instantly.
Instantly. The strategic work, on the other hand, is preventative medicine. It's trying to convince the doctors to step away and research a new surgical technique while the emergency room is completely full.
That is a much sharper analogy because it captures the visceral pull of the immediate. The urgent always feels like life or death in a business context.
Right.
The ringing phone, the client crisis, the quarterly revenue target, these things demand immediate cognitive attention. Strategy does not.
No, strategy is quiet.
Exactly. Strategy is quiet. Because of that dynamic, the important gets pushed to next quarter, indefinitely. And the excuse that is universally given for this, the shield that leaders use to defend themselves, is time. They say, I am simply too busy.
The too busy myth. And look, let's be fair to you, the listener, and to leaders everywhere. If you're running a company, you are genuinely busy.
Oh, absolutely.
It's not a fake excuse. You aren't sitting around playing solitaire. But Hale's point, which I found so fascinating, is that the excuse of being too busy is entirely irrelevant to the problem.
It is simultaneously true and completely irrelevant. Every
Yes.
senior leader is working at maximum capacity. The question isn't whether they have spare time. The question is whether the structure exists to make the strategic work non-negotiable.
So let's unpack this, because if a managing director is so incredibly busy, so swamped with these operational fires in the triage ward that they can't possibly look at their marketing metrics, why don't they just cancel their board meetings?
Right.
Why don't they just skip their major client presentations?
Because they don't.
They never do. No managing director wakes up and says, you know what, I'm too swamped with emails today. I'm just going to ghost the private equity partners.
No, of course not. They don't skip them because there are scheduled consequences.
Yeah.
The commitment happens because it is physically in the diary,
Yes.
because other human beings are waiting in a room, virtually or physically expecting them to deliver. And because failing to show up has immediate, tangible repercussions for their career and their company. That is structure.
So it's not about a lack of time, it's about a lack of scheduled consequences.
Exactly.
You go to the board meeting because the board is waiting, they hold the purse strings. You do the client pitch because the client is sitting at the table ready to sign a contract. But strategic work, the deep work that Hale argues actually produces long-term compounding growth, lacks that exact structure.
Think about a value proposition overhaul or developing a new lead generation strategy. There is no board meeting for your value proposition.
Right.
There is no scheduled appointment where someone with authority is going to sit across from you and say, did you actually review your marketing metrics this month and what are your strategic conclusions?
There's no one there.
Right. In the absence of that external structure, the immediate bleeding patient in the triage ward will always win.
Because there is no one there to be disappointed in you if you don't do the strategy work.
Precisely.
So if gritting our teeth and relying on willpower isn't the answer, and suddenly finding a magical extra 10 hours of free time in the week isn't the answer, what actually alters our behavior?
This is what leads us into the hard data behind human commitment.
Yeah, and there is a piece of data in her research that completely reframes this. I really want to dig into the 95% rule.
This is where behavioral psychology intersects with mathematics. Hale brings in some highly rigorous research from the American Society of Training and Development, which most people now know as the Association for Talent Development.
Okay.
They conducted an extensive study mapping the exact probability of a person completing a goal based on specific, measurable levels of human commitment.
It's essentially a ladder of human intention. And seeing the statistical probabilities attached to each rung of the ladder is a harsh reality check.
It really is.
Let's walk up the ladder. At the very bottom, you have a 10% probability of completing a goal if you simply have the idea.
Which is where the vast majority of business strategy lives and dies. You say, I should really fix our lead generation, or we need to update our service offerings. That passing thought gives you a 10% chance of execution.
Just 10%. So my entire notebook of great business ideas sitting on my desk right now is statistically dead on arrival.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
You are fighting overwhelming odds at that stage.
Great.
Now, moving up one rung, you reach a 25% probability if you consciously decide that you will do it. You've moved from a passing thought to a firm internal decision. I am absolutely going to fix the lead generation.
And it still only bumps it to 25%.
Just a quarter chance, yeah.
Then the data shows you get to 40% if you decide when you will do it. You put a vague timeline on it. I will do this next quarter.
Right. From there, you reach a 50% probability, literally a coin toss, if you plan how you will do it.
Okay, so a coin toss.
Yes. You've written down the steps. You have a blueprint.
Yeah.
You know exactly what software you need, who you need to hire, what the budget is.
A 50-50 shot, even after you've decided, set a timeline, and written a comprehensive plan. That is staggering to me. We spend weeks writing business plans, and statistically, it's still just a coin flip.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But then you bump up to 65% if you commit to someone else that you will do it.
Okay.
You tell a colleague or a friend, I'm going to rewrite the marketing strategy by Friday.
And here is the transformational jump in the data, the absolute pinnacle of the progression. You have a 95% probability of completing a goal if you have a specific accountability appointment with the person you have committed to.
95%. That is not an incremental improvement.
Yeah.
Going from 65% to 95% places you in a completely different universe of execution.
But we need to explain why that jump happens. It can't just be about calendars. Why does the human brain suddenly switch from, I might do this, to, I absolutely must do this just because an appointment is booked.
The reason it jumps to 95% is deeply rooted in our evolutionary biology. It's about how our brains process social contract.
Oh, its part was fascinating.
Right. When you look a peer in the eye and say, I will do this specific task and I will show you the results next Thursday at 2:00 p.m., you've engaged your brain's social survival mechanism.
Survival mechanism.
Yes. Throughout human history, failing to uphold your end of a social contract with your tribe risked a loss of status or even exile. Our amygdala, the part of the brain that processes fear and emotion, treats the threat of social shame or peer disappointment very similarly to physical pain.
So we aren't just managing our time better. We are literally hijacking our evolutionary fear of tribal rejection to force ourselves to do the spreadsheet.
Precisely. The biggest single jump in that entire progression doesn't happen when you merely find an accountability partner. It happens when you schedule the recurring appointment.
Right.
The anticipation of having to look someone in the eye and admit failure is the mechanism of success.
When you look at this ASTD data, it exposes a massive blind spot in the entire professional development industry. Think about most business books, online courses, or massive industry conferences.
Oh, definitely.
They only operate in that 25% to 50% zone. They give you the idea, they hype you up so you decide to do it, and they hand you the workbook on how to do it.
And then they leave you there at a 50% probability of failure because they cannot provide the final crucial step, the ongoing scheduled peer expectation.
It's like buying an expensive gym membership, downloading a highly detailed Olympic workout plan, buying the right shoes, and deciding you'll go on Tuesdays.
Yeah.
You are at 50%. You feel very productive. But you never actually booked the personal trainer who is going to charge you money, stand by the squat rack at 6:30 a.m., and be visibly disappointed if you don't walk through the door.
Exactly.
You need the trainer to get to 95%.
That analogy holds up perfectly because it highlights the necessity of the external force. Without an appointment, without an expectation, or without a room full of peers who will actively notice your failure to follow through, achieving lasting strategic change is nearly impossible. You are fighting against your own human nature, and human nature usually wins.
But that raises a really dark, tricky question. If making an appointment is the magic bullet, why do so many executives sitting at the top of the food chain refuse to do it? Who acts as a personal trainer for a CEO?
That is the million-dollar question.
Right. Who does the managing director answer to? It actually comes down to a really specific type of professional loneliness, doesn't it?
It does, and Hale explores how the nature of accountability fundamentally shifts and eventually breaks down as we progress in our careers.
Write that down for us.
Sure. Think about the structure of our lives from childhood. In school, we have teachers, strict daily schedules, and detention if we don't do the work.
Right, very structured.
Then at university, we have exams, supervisors, and rigid grading structures. In our early careers, in junior roles, we have line managers, performance reviews, and daily stand-up meetings. For the first 2 or 3 decades of our lives, accountability is entirely externally imposed.
We just exist inside a machine that forces us to move forward.
Exactly. The structure is built for us, we just have to walk through it. But as leaders rise through the ranks, that external accountability for their own development completely vanishes.
It just disappears.
It does. The higher you go, the less anyone is checking your homework. Yet, paradoxically, the consequences of neglecting that strategic homework grow exponentially larger.
Oh, wow, yeah.
A managing director is accountable to the board or private equity partners for the financials, to the climates for the product, and to the team for leadership. But absolutely nobody is holding them accountable for the long-term strategic thinking that would improve all 3 of those areas.
And reading this, I was struck by the sheer isolation of that position. A CEO cannot casually tell their executive team that they are deeply unsure about the direction of the company.
Never.
If they do that, the team panics, morale plummets, and key players might start looking for new jobs.
Right.
A managing director certainly cannot ask a major private equity partner if their core service offering actually makes sense anymore. If you show that kind of fundamental doubt to a PE firm, they might just replace you.
This is a critical vulnerability.
Yeah.
You have to project absolute certainty at all times. But those messy, uncertain questions like, is this working?
Yeah.
Are we targeting the right market? Is our value proposition obsolete? Are exactly the questions that must be asked if a company is going to survive and innovate.
So if you can't ask your team because they work for you, and you can't ask your board because you work for them, who do you talk to? You are in an accountability vacuum.
This is where Hale introduces a concept heavily researched at Harvard, which they call the challenge of leading across.
Leading across.
Yes, it means activating peer groups where there's absolutely no formal subordinate relationship. In a traditional corporate hierarchy, someone above you sets the agenda and checks your work. But in peer accountability, the commitment is mutual.
Right.
It is voluntary. It is horizontal.
Horizontal accountability. The research consistently shows that for senior leaders, this horizontal form of accountability produces far stronger results than traditional top-down methods.
Because it operates purely on respect and mutual commitment rather than authority and compliance. You aren't doing it because your boss threatened your bonus.
Yeah.
You are doing it because your peers, people you deeply respect, expect you to.
Hale weaves in Patrick Lencioni here, whose work is heavily cited in the Harvard Business Review. He identified that the avoidance of accountability is actually one of the 5 fundamental dysfunctions of any team.
It's a huge dysfunction.
He argues that peer accountability, the willingness to call out your equals on their performance, is the absolute toughest behavior for any professional to master.
And Joseph Grenny, another major contributor to the Harvard Business Review, found that top-performing teams are distinguished specifically by their ability to immediately and respectfully confront one another when problems arise.
Right, they don't wait around.
Exactly. It frees the nominal leader from having to be the sole source of discipline.
Okay, I have to challenge this, though. Lencioni and Harvard say we should just confront each other, but let's look at the reality of the corporate world. If I'm a managing director and I start calling out another managing director in my firm on their failing strategy, that feels like career suicide.
It can be.
It creates brutal office politics, it makes enemies, it creates defensive silos. How does horizontal accountability not just turn into a toxic backstabbing environment?
That is a very astute pushback. And it highlights why the structure of the peer group is so vital. You are absolutely right. Calling out a peer within your own company is fraught with political danger because you are competing for the same resources, the same promotions, and the same board approval.
Yes, exactly.
The horizontal accountability Hale is advocating for, and the model that actually works, relies on peers outside of your organization.
Ah, okay. So it's not the MD of marketing calling out the MD of sales in the same firm.
Exactly. It is a managing director of a logistics firm sitting in a room with a managing director of a software company and a founder of an engineering firm.
Oh, I see.
They have no competing interests. They share no internal politics.
Yeah.
Therefore, the feedback can be completely unvarnished and objective.
Because there's no risk.
Right. It goes against all our social instincts to preserve harmony when we challenge someone. But in a safe external room, that discomfort is the exact mechanism that makes it work.
Makes total sense.
When you commit to a group of external peers, the social contract is powerful, specifically because it is voluntary and because the people holding you to it are facing the exact same existential business challenges you are.
And the value isn't just in the advice they give, right? I mean, any high-priced consultant can drop a PDF of advice on your desk.
Hale makes a sharp distinction here. The true value is in the quality of the questions asked by people who understand the immense weight of the decisions being made.
Yeah.
A consultant doesn't have to live with the consequences of the strategy. A fellow CEO does. When an external peer asks, "Why are you still subsidizing that failing product line?" they are asking it from a place of deep, shared operational trauma.
Okay, so this all sounds incredibly logical in theory. Horizontal accountability, mutual respect, removing internal politics, utilizing the evolutionary discomfort of peer pressure. It's a pristine psychological model. But we need to know if this uncomfortable mutual accountability actually translates to the bottom line.
The ultimate test.
Does it protect the P&L? Let's look at the historical proof, specifically the hard evidence in times of absolute crisis.
To demonstrate the tangible financial impact of this structure, the source introduces a historical heavyweight in the space Vistage. Vistage is the world's largest CEO peer advisory organization.
And they've been around for a while.
They are not a new trend. They were founded in 1957. Today, they have over 45,000 members meeting globally every month.
And their model is the physical embodiment of what we've been talking about. Groups of 12 to 16 senior executives, specifically curated from non-competing industries, meeting for a full day every single month for facilitated working sessions. But it's the data that really stopped me in my tracks.
It's pretty incredible.
This isn't just self-reported, "I feel so much better about my business survey" data. This is independently verified by Dun & Bradstreet. Let's look at the numbers during the 2 worst economic crises in living memory.
Let's start with 2020, the onset of the global pandemic. Supply chains were shattering, offices were forced closed overnight, and consumer spending behavior changed in a week.
Total chaos.
According to the Dun& Bradstreet data, Vistage CEO members grew their annual revenue by 4.6% on average during that year.
Wait, grew?
Yes, grew. In stark contrast, comparable non-member businesses experienced a revenue decrease of 4.7%.
That is a 9.3 percentage point performance gap. While the rest of the business world was shrinking, panicking, and essentially freezing in place, these leaders were growing.
It's remarkable.
And it wasn't a fluke of the pandemic. Look at the 2008 financial recession data.
Right. During the 2008 crash, where credit markets froze and demand evaporated globally, Vistage members grew their annual revenue by 5.8%. Comparable non-members declined by 9.2%.
What? That is a staggering 15 percentage point gap during a catastrophic economic downturn.
A 15-point cap, yes. And it extends to long-term survival, too. Hale notes that Vistage member companies average 21 or more years in business. Compare that to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics data, which shows that most companies fail within just 5 years.
21 years versus 5 years, that's a completely different reality. But we have to dig into why. What exactly were those CEOs doing in that room in 2008 that the non-members weren't doing?
What's fascinating here is how Hale interprets this survival data. She argues that these are not just marginal operational improvements. They represent fundamentally different business trajectories.
How so?
Think about the decisions required in 2008. Companies needed to preserve cash flow immediately, cut vanity projects, and perhaps pivot their entire sales strategy. A solitary CEO might agonize over laying off 10% of their staff for 6 months, hoping things get better, burning through cash the whole time.
While the CEO and the accountability group goes to their monthly meeting, lays out their financials, and the group looks at them and says, you don't have 6 months of runway. You have 6 weeks. You need to make the cuts tomorrow or you lose the whole company.
Exactly. The peer group forces the brutal reality check. The primary differentiator for these surviving, thriving companies was not that they had access to secret market information or better software tools or intrinsically better initial strategies. It was the speed and certainty of their execution driven by structure.
So during the worst economic crises of our lifetimes, the leaders who were taking a full day out of their schedule every single month to sit in a room with their peers weren't wasting time.
Not at all.
They weren't ignoring the operational fires of their business. They were fundamentally altering their business trajectory by subjecting themselves to structure. The structure of regular facilitated peer accountability ensured that their strategic decisions were actually made, reviewed, and followed through on, even when the world was falling apart.
It is the ultimate proof that structure beats the urgency of the moment.
Hmm.
The triage ward does not have to consume you if you have an appointment outside of it.
So true.
If this structure is so mathematically and historically powerful, the next logical question is, how exactly do we build it? What are the specific necessary ingredients of a successful accountability group?
Yes, let's design the perfect accountability engine. Because you can't just throw 12 stressed out people in a room with some stale coffee and expect a 15-point revenue jump.
Right, that won't work.
Hale's research methodically unpacks the 5 consistent characteristics, the blueprint of effective structured peer accountability.
And these 5 pillars are non-negotiable if you want to replicate the results.
Okay, let's hear them.
Pillar number 1 is a fixed cadence. The meetings cannot be moved, rescheduled, or negotiated away when things get busy. And crucially, the research shows that monthly is the most effective rhythm for senior leaders.
I honestly would have thought weekly. Weekly feels tighter, it feels more accountable. Why doesn't weekly work?
Weekly is simply too frequent for strategic structural work at the executive level. Leaders need time to actually implement complex changes.
Okay, that's fair.
If you are rewriting a value proposition, you need to draft it, test it with key clients, revise it, and bring the data back. You cannot do that in 7 days while also running the company. If you meet weekly, the group inevitably devolves into just reporting on trivial daily tasks.
Like, I cleared my inbox, or I had a good team meeting.
Exactly. It becomes operational noise. But on the flip side, if you meet quarterly, it is too infrequent. You lose all psychological momentum, and the accountability evaporates because the deadline is always too far away to feel real.
Makes sense.
Monthly provides enough time to execute meaningful, deep work, but keeps the deadline close enough to prevent the amygdala from relaxing into procrastination.
That makes perfect sense. It balances the required time for deep work with the urgency of a looming deadline. Okay, pillar number 2, a shared focus. The group has to work through a common framework or topic each cycle.
Without a shared focus, accountability groups inevitably drift. They become informal advisory sessions or just pleasant networking events.
Right.
If you have one person trying to figure out supply chain logistics, another trying to hire a CMO, and a third trying to redesign their website, the feedback is scattered. They can't give genuinely useful, synergistic feedback.
So everyone needs to be on the same page.
Yes, a shared focus, everyone dedicating the month of October to auditing their lead generation funnel, creates a shared language and a shared intensive experience.
Right. It keeps it from becoming just a venting session over drinks where everyone complains about their unique problems.
Exactly.
Pillar number 3 is one I really want to dig into, cross-industry composition. The group must be diverse in its business background.
Both the Vistage historical model and broader sociological research confirm this. Groups composed of leaders from entirely different industries consistently outperform single industry groups.
Wait, I actually want to pause on that cross-industry idea. My instinct as a founder would be the exact opposite. Yeah. If I run a B2B sauce firm, I want to talk to other B2B sauce founders because they get my specific problems. They know my metrics, they know my customer acquisition costs. Are you saying that instinct is actually hurting me?
It is hurting you immensely. If you only put sauce founders in a room together, you only get standard sauce industry solutions. It becomes an intellectual echo chamber.
Oh, I see.
You are all reading the same blogs, attending the same conferences, and utilizing the same playbooks.
Yeah.
You will only ever achieve incremental improvements over your competitors.
So you just end up copying each other's slightly tweaked ideas.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But true innovation often comes from intellectual cross-pollination. The text gives such a great example of this.
Let's hear it.
Imagine a highly aggressive, data-driven lead generation approach that is considered standard operating procedure in the civil engineering sector. If you introduce that framework to a traditional law firm, it could completely revolutionize their pipeline because absolutely no other law firm is doing it.
Wow.
Or a positioning framework used heavily in tech consulting could unlock a massive competitive advantage for a mid-tier recruitment company. You simply cannot get those breakthrough asymmetric ideas if you only talk to people who do exactly what you do.
That outside perspective is the ultimate competitive advantage. You are importing weapons from other industries. Okay, moving to pillar number 4. Facilitated, not free form. The group must have a guide.
A room full of type A leaders needs an anchor. Someone has to set the agenda, manage the discussion, ensure everyone gets equal time, and most importantly, strictly enforce the commitments.
Right.
Without strong, objective facilitation, human nature takes over. The group will inevitably drift toward easy, comfortable conversation rather than difficult action.
Because avoiding conflict is human nature. If someone didn't do their homework, it's easier to just say, no worries, we're all busy, rather than hold their feet to the fire.
Precisely. And the text notes an important distinction. The facilitator's role isn't necessarily to be a teacher, a consultant, or a guru. Their role is to fiercely protect the structure that produces the results. They protect the mechanism of accountability.
Which leads directly to the 5th and final pillar, a commitment to doing, not just discussing. This is the stark difference between a business book club and an actual accountability group.
Members must be explicitly expected to have done the work between the monthly sessions, not to have thought about it on the drive over, not to have sketched out a quick outline on a napkin.
We all done that.
We have, but they must have executed the strategy. This mutual voluntary expectation, enforced by the social contract of the peer group and overseen by the facilitator, is the specific mechanism that produces that 95% completion rate we discussed earlier.
So if we have the undeniable blueprint, a monthly cadence, a shared focus, cross-industry composition, strict facilitation, and a commitment to doing, why isn't absolutely every professional on earth doing this?
It's a matter of access, usually.
Right. Historically, getting access to this specific 5-pillar structure has been incredibly expensive and time-consuming. We mentioned Vistage. Their memberships can cost £1,000 or substantially more every single month, and they require a full-day commitment away from the office.
Which is a lot.
Which is fantastic if you are the CEO of a massive corporation with a deep executive bench to cover for you. But it's a huge, often insurmountable barrier for the founder of an SME or a marketing director fighting for budget, or a managing director of a mid-sized professional services firm.
This is exactly where Hale translates the historical macro data into a modern, accessible application. She applied her 15 years of observation in the business consulting space to build a solution specifically to bridge this gap called the Program by Expert Circle.
Okay.
The explicit goal was to democratize this exact level of rigorous accountability.
They took the blueprint and compressed it. They distilled the exact same psychological principles, the same 5 pillars, into a much more accessible format. £150 a month for a 1-hour, highly facilitated, intense session.
Much more manageable.
Yeah, and the text contrasts this brilliantly with what people usually do with their professional development budget. Usually, people spend £200 or more on a half-day workshop with something like the CIM, the Chartered Institute of Marketing, or the PM Forum, which caters to professional services marketers.
We've all been to those.
You sit in a hotel conference room for 4 hours, drink bad coffee, take a bunch of notes, feel very inspired, and then go back to the office and absolutely nothing changes.
Nothing happens.
Because there is zero follow-through and zero peer accountability.
The program is structured to prevent that exact fade. It provides a new masterclass module every month to provide that Pillar 2 shared focus, a practical workbook to force the application of the ideas to the member's specific business, and then the live cross-industry accountability session to enforce the execution.
That's powerful.
But honestly, what is equally interesting is what the program actively chooses not to include.
Yes, the rejection of gamification. I loved this part of the text because it cuts against the grain of the entire tech industry right now. They explicitly reject points, badges, progress bars, algorithms, and leaderboards.
They do?
They call them out for what they are: manipulative motivational tricks borrowed from consumer apps.
Hale argues, very convincingly, that these gamified elements measure activity, not results. They reward you with a dopamine hit for clicking through video modules or logging into a portal, but they do absolute nothing to measure whether you actually implemented strategic change in your business.
It's like using one of those language learning apps like Duolingo.
Oh,
You
yeah.
click through the levels, you match the flashcards, you keep your 100-day streak alive. The app gives you a shiny gold star and a little trumpet sound effect.
Right.
You feel like a linguistic genius, but then you step off the plane in Paris, walk into a bakery, and you still can't string a sentence together to order a cup of coffee. Because clicking a button in a low-stakes environment isn't the same as doing the hard, practical work. Real accountability in the business world isn't an algorithm. Real accountability is looking another managing director in the eye, across a table or a screen, and having the profound discomfort of admitting that you didn't do what you promised them you would do.
The social contract cannot be gamified by a software developer. You show up prepared because other human beings at your professional level are showing up prepared. You do the work because they have done theirs, and you refuse to be the weakest link in the room.
Yeah.
There is no artificial motivation required, just human consequence.
But speaking of technology, the text does address AI, which is virtually unavoidable in any business strategy discussion right now. But they position it in a very specific, deliberate way.
They do. In this framework, AI is positioned strictly as the assistant, never the authority.
But wait, if AI is so incredibly smart and fast now, if I can just plug my business data into a large language model and get a strategy in 30 seconds, why do we need the human peer group at all? Can't I just tell an AI assistant to hold me accountable and send me daily reminders?
It's a question a lot of founders are asking right now, but Hale clarifies the boundary perfectly. The human being, you, the leader, must remain the ultimate strategist.
Okay.
You make the strategic decisions that affect real lives and real P&Ls. AI is utilized to do the heavy lifting of research, drafting initial frameworks, summarizing data, and stress testing your thinking quickly. It drastically accelerates the preparation phase.
So it's a tool.
Exactly. By using AI as an assistant, the work you bring to the human peer session is sharper, deeper, and more commercially grounded.
Sure.
But an AI cannot replicate the social contract we've been discussing.
Because AI doesn't have a judgmental amygdala.
Exactly. AI does not feel disappointment.
Yeah.
It does not feel respect. You do not respect an algorithm the way you respect a peer who has sweat blood to build a multi-million-pound business.
That's the crux of it. The AI doesn't care if your business goes bankrupt. It doesn't care if you have to lay off your team. The human peer group does. AI is the accelerator. It removes the friction of the blank page. But you are the authority, and your living, breathing peers provide the accountability. It's a phenomenally powerful combination when used correctly.
If we synthesize all the main takeaways from Hale's extensive research, we arrive at a very clear, evidence-based conclusion. The gap between knowing what strategic work to do and actually executing it is a structural flaw in how we organize our professional lives,
Yeah.
not a moral failure of discipline.
Right.
Bridging that gap requires moving your goals from a 10% passing idea to a 95% scheduled appointment. And the historical and psychological data proves unequivocally that for senior leaders, the most effective way to build that structure is through horizontal, cross-industry, facilitated peer accountability.
If you're listening to this right now and you're thinking about that strategy document sitting unopened on your desktop, or that vague plan to fix marketing that you've been dragging from quarter to quarter, look at where you are on this 95% ladder.
Ask yourself,
Have you told anyone when you're going to finish it? Have you scheduled a consequence? The next time you find yourself saying, I am too busy to work on that big goal, realize what you are actually saying. You are saying, I haven't built a structure to make this non-negotiable. You haven't built the room.
which leaves us with a lingering question to mull over based on everything we've decoded today.
Yeah.
Think about the single most important long-term strategic goal in your business or your career right now.
You know exactly what it is.
The thought of it probably stresses you out a little bit. Now ask yourself, if you fail to work on it this month, whose schedule gets disrupted? Who is waiting in a room, expecting you to present your progress?
Such a good question.
If the answer is no one, then according to the psychological mathematics we've discussed today, you are already planning to fail.
Ah,
How will you build your room?
that is the perfect note to end on. If nobody is waiting for you, you aren't going to do it. The triage ward will consume your time forever if you let it. Stop planning, stop relying on sheer willpower, and start scheduling your accountability. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, and we'll see you next time.